Tonight, we embark on a journey through the Sleep Science Top 1. Tonight, we are drifting into the ancient and often strange world of ancient healing, botanical wisdom, and ancestral remedies. A sanctuary carved from soil, starlight, and survival. This stems from the never-ending curiosity of human survival. Before the era of sterile glass and clinical precision, people listened to their bodies, studied the earth around them, and noticed which roots calmed pain, which leaves avoided infection, and which rituals reclaimed the body's innate harmony from illness. Some of that ancient wisdom disappeared. Some of it quietly waited. And some of it evolved into the foundations of what we call clinical healthcare. These ancient practices represent a broad, dynamic dialogue between chemistry, culture, and life experience. It includes treatments that altered the course of history, methods that continue to influence healthcare today, and findings that still astound scientists. It is full of genius and error, wisdom and prudence, wonder and accountability. If you love these pleasant trips, I ask you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too. If this journey brings you peace, feel free to join our circle. But for now, there's nothing you need to do but relax. Find your center and let the weight of the day dissolve. Allow your breathing to calm and let your mind unwind as we walk through this endlessly interesting environment together. Let's begin. This botanical heritage changed human survival long before modern hospitals existed. For most of human history, healing happened close to the fire, near to the field, and close to the people who knew the land. Early care was created from awareness and memory. Which leaf offered comfort to a rash after nettles? Which bark helped soothe tooth discomfort? Which steam expanded the chest during a winter cough? This was medicine as a daily skill, shared in families and communities, tested in the only way accessible, by whether someone improved. Over generations, that slow testing generated practical toolkits that helped groups endure injuries, diseases, labor, and hunger. It also shaped culture. Healing rituals grew related to seasons, harvests, and ceremonies that kept knowledge moving even when life was terrible. The sterile walls of today are but a blink in the eye of time. The human instinct to treat suffering is ancient, and it began outdoors. Numerous modern pharmaceuticals have roots in traditional botanical knowledge, improved by science. When researchers explore for new treatments, they typically start where human experience has already pointed a finger. A community observes a plant treating a stubborn fever, while a healer notes its preparation, when it is gathered, and who should avoid it. This is where the lab coat meets the forest floor. Which specific molecule drives this effect, and how does it interact with our internal biology? That process has influenced modern pharmacy again and again. A folk remedy might become a refined chemical. It might inspire a safer cousin chemical developed in the lab, or it might show a novel biochemical pathway that nobody has considered. This is not a narrative of tradition being replaced. It is a story of hints being tested, translated, and strengthened. In this sense, a study bench and a woodland walk can be included in the same trip. The liver processes botanical compounds through the same metabolic pathways as clinical treatments, since chemistry is chemistry. Inside your liver, a bustling network of enzymes constantly modifies the molecules you absorb. It does this with prescription drugs, with caffeine, and with plant extracts too. Many plants contain powerful compounds that must be broken down, activated, or eliminated, and the liver does not care if the source was a drugstore or a garden. That is why herb and medication interactions can be genuine. The enzymes that break down a drug may be accelerated by a supplement, weakening the drug. Another might delay those enzymes down, which makes the drug stronger than intended. Even foods can join the debate, because the same enzyme systems handle several chemicals at once. This is one of the most practical wonders in traditional medicine. The results are not mystical. They are biological, personal, and sometimes unexpectedly powerful. Within minutes, breathing exercises can change the variability of heart rate. The breath is one of the few levers you can pull that extends into automated body processes. When you slow breathing and longer the exhale, the body often turns toward a calmer condition, and heartbeat becomes more flexible rather than rigid. Many people experience this flexibility as a softening of the shoulders and chest, and it is associated with resilience under stress. This is why breath training appears across cultures, from chanting to slow martial arts techniques. It is also why it can aid in everyday moments, like a stressful conversation or a sleepless night. What's truly remarkable is how swiftly the body listens. You do not need weeks to observe a change. A few minutes can lessen the sense of urgency inside the body, which can influence decision-making, sleep onset, and even pain perception. It is a portable talent with rapid feedback, and that makes it powerful. Willow bark-inspired aspirin, a home medicine with ancient roots. Long before anybody could identify a chemical, people noticed that willow bark helped soothe aches and bring down fever. It was bitter, and it was not always kind on the stomach. Yet it brought relief that felt almost magical in a world without modern painkillers. Centuries later, chemists investigated that old evidence and related the impact to salicylate chemicals. From there arose a refined drug that could be prepared regularly, measured properly, and evaluated in controlled trials. Over time, it became one of the most familiar medications on planet. This story's scope is what makes it so compelling. A remedy formerly picked by hand among rivers and marshes helped create a prescription that sits in many bathroom cabinets. It is a reminder that ancient practice can convey actual signals, and that rigorous science can amplify them into something generally credible. The placebo effect can produce significant alterations, even in pain circuits. The placebo effect is not merely imagination, and it is not the same as fake. It is a true shift that can happen when the brain predicts relief and begins modifying the body's internal settings. In studies of pain, expectancy can modify activity in brain regions that perceive threat and discomfort. The brain can even create its own opioid-like substances, which modifies how pain signals are processed. What is striking is that meaning matters. The impact can be enhanced with a kind, assured explanation. A chilly warning can weaken it, even with the same medication. This is one reason rituals in these botanical practices can feel strong. The body listens to context. The placebo is likewise not endless. It cannot repair a shattered bone on belief alone. Yet it can affect symptoms, sometimes strongly, and it reminds us that healing is partly biology and partly the stories our nervous system tells itself. But healing doesn't just happen in the woods. Sometimes it's waiting in your kitchen. Take ginger, for instance, which effectively alleviates nausea, especially motion sickness for some people. Ginger holds a vital place in this ancestral heritage because nausea is so quick and alleviation seems like a minor miracle. Compounds in ginger can impact stomach movement and may interact with serotonin-related circuits involved in the nausea reflex. That makes it often well received by many individuals during travel, after anesthesia, or at other uneasy moments. Their outcomes differ. It can be taken as tea, chewed, or utilized in standardized formulations, and the form can influence how rapidly it affects. Its past is also lengthy. Sailors, traders, and families carried it because it transported easily and brought comfort when diets and seas were uncertain. However, ginger isn't without its risks. Excessive doses may lead to heartburn, and certain individuals who are pregnant or at risk for bleeding require medical advice. Still, it is a reminder that a familiar kitchen root can interact with deep circuits of the body. Peppermint oil helps relieve certain headaches by relaxing tense muscles. One of the reasons peppermint oil is so popular for relieving headaches is that it can feel like a cool breeze on the skin. Menthol affects cold-sensitive receptors, which can modify how pain is interpreted, and may relax tight muscles around the temples and neck. Some folks apply diluted peppermint oil to the forehead, then feel the headache edge fade within minutes. There is no sorcery here, only sophisticated biology. It involves sensory biology, plus the simple effect of pausing, breathing, and paying attention to the body. There is also a practical side. Concentrated oils can irritate skin, and they should never be used near eyes. Quality important too, because adulterated oils abound. The wider topic is about how smell and touch can operate as medicine-adjacent tools. When pain is building, a cooling signal can interrupt the spiral. That interruption may be sufficient to alter the entire evening for certain tension headaches. Chamomile may support sleepiness by moderate effects on brain receptors. Chamomile has become a nighttime icon. However, its reputation is related to genuine chemistry as much as tradition. Some people feel more sleepy after drinking a warm cup because one of its researched constituents, epigenin, can interact with receptors involved in calm and tiredness. The ritual is also important. The nervous system can be alerted to safety by the routine, the heat in the palms, and the aroma. Chamomile is also a plant having family links. People who react to ragweed and related plants can sometimes be sensitive, which turns a relaxing tea into an itchy surprise. That contrast is part of the wonder. A single flower can represent both comfort and caution, depending on the person. Chamomile also highlights how this botanical wisdom often functions best as a doorway into relaxation. Unlike anesthetics, it doesn't put you to sleep. It helps the mind and body agree that it is time to power down. As the body settles, our senses become more acute. This is where the gentle scent of lavender begins its work, easing perceived stress for certain people. Lavender acts as a soft whisper to the limbic system, as scent has a direct route into the brain's emotional hubs. When you inhale a smell, messages reach areas involved in memory and threat detection faster than many other senses. Lavender's major aromatic chemicals, particularly linalool, have been examined for their soothing effects in certain contexts, such as pre-procedure anxiety or stressful waiting rooms. The effect is not universal, and it is not mind control. It is more like a nudge, a little alteration in tone that might make the same moment feel less acute. That is why lavender crops up in pillows, baths, and peaceful places in hospitals. It also carries a message about natural healing and modern life. Sometimes the most powerful intervention is not a medicine. It is a shift in how the nervous system perceives safety. A smell can become a tiny bridge between the outer world and the body's internal alarms. And that bridge can matter. Genetics can influence caffeine sensitivity, shaping herbal tea responses. Caffeine is not simply in coffee. It exists in tea, yerba mate, guarana, and other traditional medicines used for alertness. How quickly and how strongly you feel the effects of coffee are influenced by your genes. After an afternoon cup, some folks metabolize it rapidly and fall asleep without any problems. Others clear it slowly and lie awake with a racing mind on a far smaller dose. The same variation can shape how you react to stimulating herbs that contain related compounds. It can also affect anxiety, heart palpitations, and digestive distress. This gives this ancient wisdom a very literal sense of intimacy. Two bodies can treat the same plant as two separate experiences. If you have ever puzzled why a friend calls a tea calming while you feel wired, your DNA may be part of the solution. It serves as a subdued reminder that biology is not universally applicable. Acupuncture can impact pain signaling and the brain's expectation networks. Its ability to operate on multiple levels simultaneously is one of the reasons it captivates scholars. The needle can trigger sensory nerves in skin and muscle, which can modify how pain messages enter the spinal cord. At the same time, the setting matters. The brain can activate its own pain-dampening mechanisms when a person anticipates relief, and imaging scans may show this change. This helps explain why two people can have completely different experiences with the same technique. It is not simply about tissue, it is also about interpretation. Some trials discover advantages for particular kinds of pain, while others find the beautiful tension of scientific discovery. That ongoing discussion is part of the story. The most fascinating notion is that a tiny physical trigger might direct a much wider network, connecting meaning to bodily sensation. Acupressure wristbands help relieve nausea for some travelers. For some people, they become a silent journey companion that truly helps. Despite their seemingly insignificant appearance, the band presses on a location on the inner wrist, and the continuous pressure can interfere with the nausea reflex that arises during motion sickness. According to some users, it lessens nausea just enough to operate, rather than totally eliminating it. On a boat, in a car, or during choppy flights, that difference might feel very noticeable. What it does not do is what makes it particularly alluring. It does not produce drowsiness, it does not dry the mouth, and it does not require timing a pill an hour ahead. It can also match with practical choices, including facing forward, maintaining cold air on the face, and avoiding heavy meals. Regaining control can be achieved with even a small impact. Stress hormones can be reduced, and pain perception can be enhanced with massage. Touch can operate like a communication to the neurological system that says, "You can stop bracing now." When muscles have been protecting for days or weeks, that guarding can become a kind of habit, and pain can grow louder inside it. Skilled pressure and movement can warm tissues, change circulation, and reduce the feeling of stiffness that makes everything feel harder. There is also a brain-level effect. Safe, predictable contact can minimize the danger response, which may reduce stress hormone levels and soften pain interpretation. Afterward, some people have better sleep, which might further lessen their sensitivity to pain the next day. What makes massage compelling as natural therapy is the immediacy. It shuts down the alert without asking the body to process anything. From deep work for tight fascia to lighter techniques that emphasize comfort and relaxation, different styles may provide different outcomes. Heat therapy helps relax muscles and boost local blood flow. Warmth frequently works like permission. Tight muscles that have been holding a hurting spot in place can finally loosen because the nervous system stops interpreting movement as a danger. Heat can also boost circulation at the surface, which can improve comfort and flexibility in stiff joints and overworked tissue. People go for heating pads, warm showers, or hot water bottles because comfort can arrive swiftly and because the body often responds with a full sigh of release. The essential detail is using it in the correct settings. Heat works well for persistent tightness or chronic aches, but alternative approaches can be more effective for a recent injury with edema. Additionally, skincare is necessary, particularly if a person's sensitivity is diminished if they fall asleep near a heat source. The directness of it is what's fascinating. Temperature is a signal, and the body answers it. Cold therapy can numb pain and reduce swelling after injury. Cooling affects the mechanics of an injury in a way you can feel within minutes. Cold can impede nerve conduction, which blunts acute pain impulses and makes the region feel less urgent. Additionally, it may decrease edema in the initial stages following a bump or twist by constricting local blood vessels. That can help someone walk more quietly and avoid panicky overguarding that aggravated stiffness later. Many people learn this in the most regular way, by getting a cold pack from the freezer and feeling the pulse of agony quiet down. The key is temperance. Ice should not sit directly on skin for long durations, because that might damage tissue and nerves. Short intervals with a fabric barrier are safer. Cold is not comfort for everyone, but it can be a wonderfully efficient weapon when used carefully. Even when sensation persists, meditation can lessen the unpleasantness of pain. Pain is not merely sensation, it is sensation. Thus the warning that says, "This is harmful and I cannot handle it." For some people, meditation training can lessen the alert, which alters the experience, even though the raw signal is still present. A person learns to recognize the feeling, give it a name, and allow it to pass. without adding more agony, as opposed to spiraling into dread and rage. According to brain research, networks associated with threat and rumination may change in activity as a result of attention and emotional evaluation. That may explain why the same amount of pain can feel less overpowering after practice. The shift is not denial, and it is not pretending something does not hurt. It is learning not to fight the sensation with panic. Over time, that can re-establish a sense of agency. The amazing thing is that the mind can change the meaning of pain, and meaning changes biology. If plants are our external allies, movement is our internal medicine. Yoga, for example, is more than just stretching mobility, balance, and stress resilience over time. Yoga educates the body in a way that looks simple, yet it accesses deep processes. Holding poses improves strength in stabilizing muscles that protect joints, and gentle transitions improve proprioception, which is your awareness of position and balance. In addition to teaching the nervous system to remain steady when the body is under modest pressure, breathing combined with movement can also result in calmer responses to everyday stress. Different impacts result from different styles. A forceful flow can build heat and endurance, while a gentler exercise can restore range of motion and relieve stress. What's so interesting here is as this ancient wisdom is that it acts as both physical and mental conditioning at once. You are training your attention in addition to stretching. The results can collect quietly, then show up one day when stairs feel easier, posture feels more open, and stress feels less sticky. It's a lengthy game with surprisingly useful rewards. Calm concentration is one way that forest bathing might reduce stress signs. The exercise is more about allowing the senses to re-enter the world than it is about hiking. In a forest or park, attention naturally moves toward texture, sound, and distance. And that shift can disrupt rumination, which is a key generator of stress. Studies have shown that spending time in green places can alter mood and some physiological parameters, albeit the effects differ depending on the individual and the environment. There might be more than one contributor. Cleaner air, cooler temperatures, slower movement, and the absence of road noise can all assist. While that field is still in its infancy, several researchers also investigate the potential role of chemicals released by plants. What makes the idea so intriguing is how ordinary it is. A place with trees becomes an instrument for regulation. The mind stops scanning for threads and starts observing detail, and the body frequently follows. It is a reminder that environment is not backdrop. It is part of physiology. All these remedies we've discussed lead to a single, vital destination, the sanctuary of sleep itself, where repair chemistry surges at night. The body changes its priorities while you sleep. Deep sleep supports tissue repair and immunological maintenance, and the brain conducts its own nocturnal housekeeping, consolidating memories and removing metabolic waste more effectively than during alertness. The effects of getting little or no sleep might manifest quickly. Pain sensitivity grows, appetite regulation slips, and emotional reactivity increases, which can make tiny difficulties appear large. That is why one wonderful night can feel like a reset, and one awful night might feel like a tilt of the whole globe. Sleep also amplifies other actions. Exercise recuperation increases, mood methods function better, and concentration becomes steadier. In natural medical traditions, sleep is generally viewed as the basis, not an optional bonus. The amazing element is that it is both passive and active at once. You seem still, although the day's most intricate repair work is under progress. Some herbal ingredients act better together, not as isolated single molecules. In a living plant, chemicals rarely present alone. They travel in mixes that evolved for protection, smell, and survival. When humans consume a herb, they typically take in a whole chorus of molecules at once. Sometimes, the mixture performs differently than a single purified ingredient. One chemical may provide the major therapeutic activity, while others slow its breakdown, minimize irritation, or help it pass biological barriers. In other circumstances, several substances may target separate steps in the same process, providing a combined impact that feels greater than any one part. This hypothesis can be evaluated, and sometimes it holds up, albeit not always. It also illustrates why duplicating a traditional medicine can be tougher than it looks. The balance of chemicals can be altered by altering the plant variety, the harvest season, or the preparation technique, which alters the result. The mixes seen in nature can be very complex, and they require close examination. Due to its ability to inhibit breakdown enzymes, grapefruit can dangerously elevate the effects of several medications. Grapefruit is not a villain, yet it has a talent for adjusting medicine levels in a way that can be shocking. An enzyme in the stomach wall that typically breaks down several medications before they enter the bloodstream can be interfered with by compounds found in grapefruit. When the enzyme is inhibited, more of the medication reaches circulation than planned. The consequence can be stronger effects and stronger side effects, even if the dose on the label never changed. This concerns for various medications, including some cholesterol meds and some blood pressure medicines, among others. What makes it feel eerie is the time. Because it may take some time for the enzyme activity to return, the interaction may last longer than one glass. This ancient wisdom is often defined as roots and leaves, although this shows us everyday foods can behave like potent modifiers of contemporary therapy. Even because eucalyptus labor mostly modifies feeling, it can be relaxing. Eucalyptus is known for its ability to calm the mind, and this effect can be felt right away. Cineol, the primary aromatic ingredient, can produce an open, cold feeling in the airways that facilitates breathing, even in the presence of congestion. That is an intriguing and significant distinction. Deception is part of comfort, and comfort can influence how well you slumber. Eucalyptus also has minor antibacterial capabilities in lab experiments. However, vapor intake is not the same as cleaning an infection. What it often delivers is a sensory reset. The pungent aroma, the warmth of steam, and the rhythmic breathing help decrease fear that comes with a plugged nose. It is also an area where safety counts. Concentrated oils should never be swallowed, and they can be harmful around young children and pets. Used appropriately, eucalyptus is a reminder that relief can come from adjusting sensation, not only from removing the problem. Licorice root can elevate blood pressure, which surprises many herbal users. Licorice can act as a covert hormone switch, which is shocking. The body may retain sodium while releasing potassium due to certain chemicals found in actual licorice, particularly in concentrated forms. In addition to raising blood pressure, this change may cause headaches, edema, or an irregular heartbeat in those who are sensitive. What makes it tough is how ordinary it seems. Licorice shows up in teas, candies, and supplements, so the exposure can be casual and repeated without anybody detecting a pattern. This risk is altered by the use of deglycyrrhizonated licorice in some products, although labels are not carefully read. This is this ancient wisdom conundrum. The same plant can be relaxing in one situation and destabilizing in another. The body responds to chemistry, not to the story on the packaging. Because Street John's wort speeds up liver enzymes, it can decrease birth control. This herb has a brilliant reputation for mood, although it also holds one of the most important warning tales in this ancient wisdom. It can ramp up the activity of certain metabolic processes that remove toxins from the bloodstream. Certain drugs may leave the body more quickly than anticipated when that occurs. This may result in hormone levels falling below what is required for dependable protection when using birth control pills. Other medications, such as several used in transplant treatment and other antivirals, have also been linked to similar issues. What makes this more unsettling is that it can happen quietly. There is no major sign that alerts you ahead of time. Everything seems normal until the consequences occur. This is why clinicians routinely ask about supplements and why it matters to answer honestly. When used in the improper combination, a plant that seems like self-care might completely change a person's prescription regimen. Aloe gel helps treat burns by cooling tissue and lowering inflammation. Fresh aloe feels like relief because it offers water, slippery plant sugars, and a cooling touch just where heat has hurt the skin. That cooling does not simply feel great. It can lessen the sense of burning while the surface settles. Aloe gel also forms a light, breathable layer that helps maintain moisture in place, which matters when skin feels tight and irritated. In certain research, aloe-based formulations have been examined for minor burns and moderate irritation, with outcomes that depend on the product and how it is prepared. The plant is packed with chemicals, and processing can modify what stays active. It is also a reminder that this ancient wisdom begins with basic contact. A living leaf may offer comfort in seconds, and that immediacy is part of its continuing allure. Honey can treat wounds by wicking water away from microorganisms. Honey is a peculiar form of medicine because it seems like pure sweetness, yet it can operate like a hostile environment for microorganisms. Its high sugar concentration pushes water out of bacterial cells by osmosis, which makes it harder for them to develop. Another layer of antibacterial action is added by the modest amounts of hydrogen peroxide that many honeys release when diluted. Sterilized honey is used in some medical-grade dressings, and some types are more researched than others. This is fascinating because it's so old and useful. A material generated by insects to store food can also help a wound stay cleaned and wet in the appropriate way. In certain chronic wounds, it can also lessen odor, which is important for both healing and dignity. Foxglove became digitalis, turning a garden herb into a cardiac medication. With its tall stalks and bell-shaped flowers, foxglove may appear harmless, but its chemistry can be extremely potent. That tension is part of what makes this ancient wisdom so fascinating. In the 18th century, an English physician named William Withering studied a folk remedy used for swelling linked to heart failure. He identified foxglove as the cause of the effect and started carefully experimenting with dosage, noting both toxicity and benefit. Digitalis medications that can strengthen the heartbeat under specific circumstances were developed as a result of that work. The lesson is not that plants are safer than drugs. The lesson is that plants can be drugs. A small change in dose can shift from help to harm, which is why Withering's detailed observation mattered so much. A cottage remedy turned into a game changer, and people began to respect the garden in a new way. Your taste for bitterness can predict tolerance for some plant alkaloids. Bitterness is not just a flavor. It is a very old warning system. Because many toxins taste bitter, humans have evolved to detect bitter compounds. Yet people vary widely in how strongly they perceive bitterness, and part of that variation comes from taste receptor genes. Some people have a strong bitter taste and steer clear of tonic waters, herbal tinctures, and some leafy greens. Others can tolerate the same plants with ease and hardly notice. This matters because many medicinal plants contain alkaloids and other bitter compounds that influence the nervous system, digestion, or circulation. If bitterness hits you like a siren, it may shape how much you are willing to take and how your body responds. Traditional practices often found workarounds, like combining herbs with honey, fats, or warming spices. The deeper fascination is that your tongue can be an early gatekeeper for your medicine cabinet. Flavor preference and pharmacology can be linked more tightly than most people realize. Fasting can change drug levels, including those from herbal extracts. When your stomach is empty, the body handles compounds differently. Some substances absorb faster, and peak levels can rise more sharply. Others cause more irritation to the lining of the stomach in the absence of a food buffer. Additionally, fasting alters gut motility and liver metabolism, which may alter how long a substance remains in circulation. This matters for prescription drugs, and it can matter for concentrated herbal extracts too. If you take a supplement right before a long morning meeting, it might feel too potent. Sometimes people take that to mean that the treatment is suddenly effective, but the timing and physiology may be the cause of the amplification. This is one of the reasons, in addition to custom, that traditional medicine frequently links treatments to meals. It is practical dosing advice. Nutrition is the vehicle for the remedy, serving as a delivery system rather than just fuel. When taking herbs is just as important as what you take if you take them seriously. Fatty meals can increase absorption of some plant compounds. Many plant compounds dissolve better in fat than in water. When you eat a fatty meal, bile acids are released to help digest that fat. Those bile acids can also help ferry fat-soluble compounds across the gut wall. For this reason, some traditional remedies were made in oils, ghee, or nut pastes, and some supplements advise taking them with food. There may be a significant difference. A compound might barely register in the bloodstream when taken on an empty stomach, then become much more available when paired with fat. That can be helpful when the goal is effectiveness. Additionally, if someone unintentionally increases absorption, it may increase the risk of adverse effects. This is the kind of detail that makes this ancient wisdom feel like a craft. The potency may include preparation. The same plant can behave like a whisper or a shout, depending on what else is on your plate. Artemisinin, from sweet wormwood, transformed malaria treatment worldwide, the ancient shadow of malaria for millennia, and it can move through communities with ruthless speed. In the 20th century, scientists searching for better treatments turned to traditional Chinese medical texts that described sweet wormwood for intermittent fevers. The breakthrough came through careful experimentation, including changes in extraction methods that preserved the active compound. The result was artemisinin, a molecule that acts fast against the malaria parasite and helped reshape global treatment strategies. The story is dramatic because it links ancient writing, modern chemistry, and real lives saved. It also shows how fragile discovery can be. A small detail in preparation can determine whether a compound survives heat or breaks apart. In this case, respecting the clues in historical practice helped unlock a tool powerful enough to change public health in many regions. Few examples show the bridge between traditions and laboratories so clearly. Traditional medicine preserved knowledge by story, ritual, and careful observation. Before widespread literacy, the most reliable storage device was another person. Knowledge had to be memorable, repeatable, and tied to daily life. Stories carried warnings about dangerous plants. Psalms remembered harvest times and preparation steps. Rituals ensured that a practice was performed the same way, which reduced random changes that could make a remedy fail. This was not only spiritual, it was practical. When a community depends on a remedy, consistency becomes a form of safety. Observation mattered too. Healers watched who improved, who worsened, and which patterns returned with seasons. Over time, that created informal evidence, shaped by experience and limited by what could be seen without microscopes or blood tests. It is easy to dismiss this as unscientific, yet it was a working system of knowledge transmission in a world without books. It kept medical memory alive across generations and migrations. Nature makes defensive chemicals, and humans sometimes borrow them as medicine. Plants, fungi, and microbes cannot run away, so they survive through chemistry. They make bitter compounds to discourage grazing, toxins to kill insects, and antimicrobial substances to keep infections from taking hold. In the wild, these molecules are tools for survival. In human hands, some become medicines. A compound that blocks a pest signal might influence our nerves too, in a controlled way. A molecule that stops bacterial growth on a leaf might become a lead for an antibiotic. This borrowing is risky and beautiful at the same time. Defensive chemistry is powerful, which means dosing and purity matter. It also means nature is not a gentle apothecary. It is a competitive arena that manufactures strong signals. When we explore this ancient wisdom, we are exploring evolutionary strategies written in molecules. Every remedy has a backstory, and that backstory often begins with a battle for survival. Turmeric's curcumin is studied for inflammation, but absorption is tricky. Curcumin has become famous because it can influence inflammatory signaling in lab studies, and that sounds like a master key for pain and aging. The catch is that the body does not absorb it easily in its simplest form. Much of it passes through the gut, gets quickly transformed by the liver, or never reaches high levels in blood. That does not make it useless, but it does make it complicated. Researchers have explored ways to improve uptake, including pairing it with piperine from black pepper, using emulsions, or binding it to fats. Each approach changes how the compound behaves, and different products can produce very different results. There is also a deeper lesson here. A spice can inspire serious science, yet the leap from tradition to capsule is not automatic. Sometimes the story is about delivery, not just the ingredient. Clove oil contains eugenol, a natural numbing chemical used in dentistry. Clove oil shows how a plant can carry a compound that feels almost engineered for human nerves. Eugenol can dull pain by acting locally, which is why clove has been used for tooth discomfort for centuries, and why dentistry has studied it carefully. In some dental materials, eugenol has played a role in temporary cements and soothing pastes, especially when a tooth is inflamed. The sensation can be striking. A small amount can shift throbbing into something quieter and more tolerable. That power also explains the cautions. Clove oil is strong and can burn tissue if applied directly in excess. It should be diluted and used with care, and it is not a substitute for treating infection or decay. Still, it is an unforgettable example. A spice associated with holiday desserts also carries chemistry that can momentarily change how nerves fire, right at the source of pain. Capsaicin creams can quiet pain by tiring certain nerve endings. Capsaicin is the heat in chili peppers, and it does something clever to pain nerves. It activates receptors that signal burning, and with repeated exposure, those nerve endings can become less responsive. In other words, a strong signal can eventually lead to desensitization, which is why capsaicin creams are used for certain stubborn pain conditions. People sometimes use them for nerve pain after shingles or for aching joints under medical guidance. The first applications can sting, and that surprises many newcomers. Then, over time, the area may feel calmer because the nerve endings release fewer pain-related chemicals. It is a strange trade. You accept a controlled burn to reduce a larger one later. That is, this ancient wisdom in a nutshell. It uses the body's own adaptation systems, then rides the change. It also teaches respect for dosing, because too much can inflame skin rather than help it heal. Kava may calm anxiety, yet it can strain the liver. Kava has been used in Pacific Island cultures as a social and ceremonial drink, valued for its calming effects and its ability to loosen tension without clouding the mind in the same way alcohol can. In supplement form, it became popular for anxiety and sleep, and some people report a noticeable softening of worry. The complication is safety. There have been reports of serious liver injury linked to kava products, and risk may vary with the part of the plant used, the extraction method, the dose, and the person taking it. That uncertainty is what makes the story so gripping. The same tradition that treats the plant with respect meets an industrial world that concentrates and commodifies it. Kava can also cause drowsiness, and it should not be mixed with sedatives or heavy drinking. It is a powerful example of why preparation and context can matter as much as the plant itself. Comfrey can harm the liver, despite a long folk history. Comfrey was once called knit bone because it was used topically for bruises and sprains, and the name alone sounds like a promise. The problem is that the plant contains pyrrolizidine alkaloids, compounds that can damage the liver and in severe cases can cause a dangerous blockage of small blood vessels inside it. The risk is greatest with internal use, especially teas and cat chills, because the compounds reach the bloodstream and the liver must process them. What makes Comfrey such a memorable caution is the mismatch between tradition and modern concentration. A folk practice might have involved external poultices and occasional use. A supplement can turn that into repeated internal exposure. Many regulators advise against ingesting comfrey, and some products are restricted or reformulated. This is not an argument against traditional knowledge. It is an argument for updating it when hidden toxicology becomes visible. Ephedra's stimulant effects led to serious harms and bans. Ephedra is a plant that can feel like a rocket because it contains stimulant compounds that mimic adrenaline. For a time, it became a booming ingredient in weight loss and energy products, and people chased the promise of appetite suppression and intense alertness. Then the harms piled up. Reports linked ephedra use to spikes in blood pressure, heart rhythm problems, strokes, and other emergencies, especially when combined with exercise, dehydration, or other stimulants. The story is a lesson in speed. The body can be pushed into overdrive faster than it can adapt. That is why ephedra became restricted or banned for dietary supplement use in several places, including the United States. It also reveals something uncomfortable about this ancient wisdom marketing. When a plant is treated like a shortcut, the dose climbs, the context disappears, and risk stops being theoretical. Ephedra reminds us that stimulation is not the same as health. Bitter orange can act like a stimulant in some bodies. When ephedra faded from many shelves, bitter orange stepped into the spotlight as a new weight loss ingredient. It contains synephrine, a compound that can stimulate certain receptors involved in heart rate and blood vessel tone. For some people, that can mean jitters, palpitations, or a sense of being wired. The risk may increase when it is stacked with caffeine, which is common in energy and slimming products. What makes bitter orange fascinating is how it hides in plain sight. Citrus feels wholesome, familiar, and safe, yet the peel and extracts can behave very differently than the fruit on a breakfast plate. Research on safety and effectiveness has been mixed, and product quality varies widely. This is another example of why this ancient wisdom is not only about what a plant is, it is about what part is used, how it is concentrated, and who is taking it. A name that sounds harmless can still carry a punch. Ginkgo can thin blood, raising bleeding risk with certain medicines. Ginkgo is often taken for memory and circulation, and its fan-shaped leaves have an almost ancient look that makes people trust it. One of the less discussed issues is bleeding risk. Ginkgo may affect platelet function, which can make clotting less efficient in some situations. That becomes especially important for people taking anticoagulant or antiplatelet medications, and for anyone preparing for surgery or dental procedures. The risk is not always obvious, day to day. You may not notice anything until bruises appear more easily, a nosebleed lasts longer, or a procedure bleeds more than expected. Ginkgo's story highlights a practical truth. Supplements can change physiology in ways that matter in real medical moments, not just in wellness routines. It also underlines why healthcare teams ask about herbs before operations. The goal is not to shame this ancient wisdom. When the body needs to quickly seal wounds, the aim is to avoid surprises. Garlic supplements can change clotting, especially before surgery. Although concentrated garlic supplements can function differently from a few cloves in a meal, garlic is a popular ingredient in food for good reason. Platelet activity may be affected by specific sulfur compounds, which could change how blood clots. This is not a crisis for the majority of people who regularly eat garlic. The concern rises when high-dose supplements are used, particularly alongside blood thinners or in the days leading up to surgery. A surgeon wants predictable clotting. An anesthesiologist wants predictable blood pressure and bleeding risk. That is why some pre-operative instructions include stopping certain supplements ahead of time. What makes garlic a compelling example is its familiarity. People forget to mention it because it feels like a kitchen ingredient, not a medical decision. This ancient wisdom often lives in that gray zone between food and drug. Garlic shows how crossing that boundary with concentration can change the body's behavior in ways that matter. Natural does not equate to safe. Context and dosage determine this. This might be the most important idea in the whole conversation, because it protects curiosity from becoming recklessness. Hemlock is natural, so is poison ivy. So are many of the chemicals that make plants unpalatable to insects. Nature is skilled at creating molecules that change biology, and that is exactly why natural remedies can help. It is also why they can harm. The line between remedy and poison is often dose. While a small amount might calm, a large amount could aggravate the stomach, stress the heart, or interfere with important medications. Context matters too. A mild herb can become dangerous due to age, pregnancy, illnesses, and other medications. Quality matters because contamination and mislabeling are real. The most empowering approach is not fear. It is informed respect. Inquire about what is known and what interacts. Treat supplements like active agents because that is what they are. When wonder is combined with thoughtful decisions, it becomes safer. Instead of focusing on individual symptoms, traditional Chinese medicine lists patterns. A key idea is that discomfort is rarely treated as an isolated dot on a checklist. Practitioners search for a pattern in every aspect of the individual, including sleep, appetite, temperature, thirst, mood, digestion, and even pulse quality. Due to differences in their general patterns, two people may have the same complaint but be directed toward different solutions. That makes the system feel more like mapping weather than naming a single cloud. It also explains why questions can sound surprising, like being asked about dreams when you came in for headaches. Because it views the body as interconnected and draws attention to early changes before illness becomes apparent, this pattern thinking can be persuasive. Sometimes, contemporary researchers convert these patterns into quantifiable clusters and compare them to results. It is an old way of organizing information that still provokes new questions. Ayurveda links digestion and daily rhythms to overall balance. The day is not a blank timeline in Ayurveda. It is a cycle with predictable peaks and dips that can support health or strain it, depending on how you live inside it. Meals are not only calories, they are signals that train the gut, the hormones, and the nervous system to expect nourishment at certain times. Sleep is treated the same way because the body uses night hours for repair and regulation. Since every cell depends on what the gut can digest and absorb, it makes sense that Ayurveda places digestion at the core of vitality. The system encourages routines that feel simple yet disciplined, like regular meals, earlier bedtimes, and attention to how different foods land in your body. Many of these same themes are now studied by modern chronobiology, using metabolic timing and circadian rhythms. It is fascinating when an ancient framework echoes modern research questions in a different language. Indigenous pharmacopoeias often reflect local ecology with stunning precision. In many indigenous knowledge systems, medicine is not separated from landscape. It is learned by living in one place long enough to notice which plants thrive after fire, which barks pale in the wet season, and which roots are safest to harvest without killing the plant. That creates a library built from relationships, not from shelves. Remedies often match local challenges, like treating parasites in humid regions or supporting hydration in dry ones. Because the same plant can be both harmful and medicinal in different forms, preparation techniques can be equally accurate. The way this knowledge integrates ecology, sustainability, and health into a single practice is what makes it so astounding. It also raises ethical questions today. Credit and consent are important when businesses use these remedies. A pharmacopoeia is more than just an ingredient list. It is a record of stewardship, survival, and deep attention to place. Fermentation was used by many cultures to turn plants into kinder medicines. Fermentation looks like foodcraft, yet it is also microbial chemistry that can reshape how a remedy behaves. Plant sugars can be broken down by bacteria or yeasts, which can alter flavor, lessen harsh compounds, and occasionally increase the availability of nutrients. Additionally, The process can produce acids and other molecules that aid in the preparation's preservation, which was important prior to refrigeration. Across the world, people learned that thyme and microbes could soften a plant's rough edges and sometimes make it easier to tolerate. Fermented preparations could also deliver living microbes that interacted with digestion, which may have influenced how people felt afterward. What is so captivating is that fermentation is a collaboration. Tiny organisms carry out the transformation after humans set the conditions. It is medicine that happens quietly in a jar. Today, scientists analyze fermented remedies to see which chemical changes occur and which ones might explain traditional claims. Ancient kitchens keep giving modern labs new leads. Shamans and healers often tracked outcomes, even without written records. Although it is simple to think of traditional healing as pure faith, many healers were meticulous observers because their lives depended on it. They observed who recovered fast, who relapsed, and which treatments appeared to be effective only during specific times of the year or for specific age groups. Additionally, they learned to keep an eye out for warning signs, which might indicate that a remedy should be stopped rather than intensified. Without charts and spreadsheets, memory became a clinical tool. Communities reinforced that memory by repetition. A remedy that failed would be talked about. A helpful remedy would be asked for once more. Over time, that social feedback acted like a rough form of peer review. It was not perfect, and it could be biased by stories and status. Yet it still created a pressure toward usefulness. This contributes to the centuries-long persistence of some customs. They survived many rounds of real-world testing. The results were stored in people and in the shared habits of a community. Ancient Egyptian texts listed remedies using honey, fat, and herbs. Some of the earliest medical writings we have are pragmatic, not mystical. Egyptian papyri describe treatments for wounds, burns, stomach troubles, and pain, and they often used materials that were available and stable in a hot climate. Honey appears because it keeps well, and it can inhibit microbes. Animal fats appear because they can carry plant ingredients on skin, and they can form a protective layer. Herbs appear because they were the chemical toolkit of the time. The combination of everyday life and clinical intent is fascinating. A kitchen substance becomes a dressing. A farm product becomes a base for a salve. These texts also reveal a deep appetite for classification. They identify conditions, suggest preparations, and advocate for frequent use. The records show people attempting to systematize healing long before modern anatomy, even though clinical healthcare does not accept every claim. They are a reminder that medical curiosity is ancient, and it left ink trails. Greek physicians debated herbs, diet, and exercise as daily medicine. In classical Greece, healing was not only about crisis moments. Living in a way that lessened the likelihood of experiencing a crisis was another aspect of it. Physicians argued about which foods strengthened the body, how movement shaped vitality, and when rest was the wiser choice. Herbs were part of the toolkit, yet they were often discussed alongside sleep habits, bathing, and changes of season. The discussion was both pragmatic and philosophical, which made it vivid. What is health, and what is the best life for a human body? These debates helped shape later Western medicine by encouraging observation and explanation, even when the underlying biology was misunderstood. It is also a powerful illustration of medicine as a culture. Exercise and nutrition advice evolved into advice about balance, discipline, and character. You can still hear echoes of it today, when wellness advice sounds moral rather than medical. The ancient debates remind us that health guidance has always carried values. It can be so persuasive and contentious because of this. Roman soldiers carried herbal supplies, including vinegar for cleaning wounds. A marching army is a medical experiment under pressure. Cuts, blisters, and infected scrapes can disable more soldiers than arrows can. Vinegar became a useful tool as the Romans discovered the importance of basic hygiene. It is acidic. It can inhibit some microbes, and it was easy to transport compared with fragile fresh water. Due to the need for prompt and remote care, soldiers also relied on basic botanical remedies for skin issues, stomach distress, and aches. This is one reason military medicine often accelerates change. When a large group faces the same injuries repeatedly, the useful practices spread fast. The romance of Roman history often focuses on roads and battles, yet there is another story running underneath. It tells the tale of regular maintenance, bandaging, cleaning, and keeping minor wounds from becoming fatal. This ancient wisdom in this setting was not decorative, it was operational. Keeping bodies functional was part of keeping an empire moving. Medieval monasteries preserved medicinal gardens and copied herb manuscripts. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, books could vanish with a single fire. Monasteries became places where copying was a form of survival. Monks maintained gardens that provided food and medicine, recorded recipes, and copied herbal texts. These gardens were living reference libraries. A plant could be identified, tended, harvested, and tested season after season. That continuity mattered because it prevented knowledge from fragmenting into rumor. Monastic medicine also connected care with hospitality. Travelers and the sick could receive basic treatment, and the monastery could refine what it offered through repetition. What is fascinating is how quiet this preservation was. There was no global conference, yet across centuries, handwriting and garden beds kept a medical lineage alive. Some manuscripts combined human observation with myth, yet they also carried real details about preparation and dosage. In a world with limited options, that careful copying was a public health act. The garden was a pharmacy, and the scriptorium was its memory. Traditional midwifery built practical knowledge, passed mother to student. Midwives often learned in the most direct classroom possible, in the presence of birth itself. Knowledge was passed through apprenticeship, with attention to timing, posture, breathing, and the subtle signs that labor was progressing well. They learned comfort measures that helped a person feel safe, which can influence hormones involved in labor. They also learned when birth was turning dangerous and when help was urgently needed. This mix of support and vigilance is why midwifery is such a compelling chapter in this ancient wisdom. It is care that is both ancient and modern. Many practices were shaped by experience, not by theory. Additionally, they were passed down through generations of women who seldom had the authority to publish their knowledge. Midwives also held community trust, which gave them a role beyond childbirth, including newborn care and postpartum recovery. Their work shows how medicine can be relational. When used during a family's most trying time, skilled presence can sometimes be the most effective tool. The gut microbiome can change how plant compounds are activated. Inside your intestines, trillions of microbes act like a hidden laboratory. Many plant chemicals arrive as larger molecules that your own enzymes handle only partly. Then microbes step in, snipping bonds, reshaping structures, and sometimes turning a quiet compound into a more active form. Because their microbial communities perform different chemistry, two people can consume the same herbal tea and experience different effects. Diet, antibiotics, illness, and stress can all shift that community over time, which means your response can change from year to year. This is one reason traditional remedies sometimes feel unpredictable, even when the plant is consistent. This is also the reason why scientists are now studying microbiome profiling in addition to herbal medicine. Perhaps the cup isn't the only place where the real action is happening. It might be in the warm, living passageway of your stomach, or in what transpires next. Soy isoflavones can have different effects depending on how they are converted. Soy contains isoflavones that can interact with hormone-related pathways in the body. One of those isoflavones is converted into a substance known as equine by specific gut microbes in some individuals. Others never make it at all. This difference can shape how soy feels in the body, including how it may influence hot flashes, bone markers, or cholesterol-related measures in some studies. It also makes soy a perfect example of personalized nutrition hiding in plain sight. You can eat the same tofu as a friend and be having a different biochemical conversation. Culture adds another layer. The entire dietary context is altered because soy has been consumed by many populations for generations, frequently in fermented or whole forms. When people isolate isoflavones into supplements, the story can change again. This isn't just a good or bad ingredient. It is a reminder that your body's response depends on your internal ecosystem, not just the label. Heat can alter the potency of herbs by destroying some delicate molecules. The traditional method of using plants to make medicine seems to involve boiling a pot of water. Heat, however, can be a thief as well as a helper. While some compounds disintegrate at excessively high temperatures, others extract more readily when heated. Essential oils can evaporate. Certain vitamins can degrade. Some enzymes in fresh plants are heat sensitive and stop working once cooked. That means the same herb can have a different profile as a cold infusion, a warm steep, or a long simmered decoction. Traditional systems often developed specific methods for different plants, and those choices may have preserved fragile compounds without anyone naming them. These changes can now be measured by modern labs, making outdated preparation guidelines appear surprisingly sensible. It is also a reminder not to treat all herbs the same. Heat is not a step that is neutral, it's a chemical choice. Temperature changes affect more than just taste. You may be changing the medicine itself. Storage is important. Light and oxygen can slowly reshape active chemicals. Herbal medicine can age in ways that are easy to miss. Light can break down sensitive compounds. Oxygen can oxidize oils and polyphenols, which changes smell, taste, and biological activity. Heat and humidity can encourage microbial growth, especially in poorly dried plant material. Over months, a potent jar can drift into something weaker or sometimes harsher without obvious warming signs. Good suppliers use dark bottles, tight seals, and transparent expiration procedures for this reason. For this reason, fresh harvests and meticulous drying were highly valued by traditional apothecaries. The drama here is that time becomes an ingredient. The chemistry may have changed subtly on a sunny windowsill, even though you may believe you are taking a regular dose. Paying attention to everyday details is rewarded in this ancient wisdom. A remedy is not only what it is also what it has been through, from harvest to shelf to your hands. Plants vary by soil and climate, so the same herb can differ. A plant is a living response to its environment. Rainfall, altitude, sunlight, pests, and soil minerals all affect which chemicals a plant produces and how concentrated they become. Two fields growing the same species can yield herbs with noticeably different aromas and effects. This is partially due to the fact that plants use chemistry as a stress reduction strategy. A dry season might push a plant to make more protective compounds. Different ratios of secondary chemicals may result in faster growth in rich soil. This is why terroir is not only a wine idea, it can be a medicine idea too. It's possible that traditional healers' preferences were based on actual variations in potency, as they frequently favored particular areas or harvest seasons. Modern testing now confirms variability in many botanicals, which creates a challenge for consistency and also a fascination for researchers. Nature does not create batches that are exactly alike. It creates narratives written in soil and climate. Standardization tries to fix this, but nature resists perfect uniformity. By standardizing to a marker compound, modern herbal products frequently strive for dependability. That means a manufacturer tests an extract and adjusts it so each batch contains a consistent amount of one chosen chemical. This can increase predictability, which is important for both safety and research. Yet plants are not single compound factories. A remedy may depend on multiple constituents working together, and standardizing one piece can change the balance of the rest. Which compound ought to be the marker is another issue. The most famous chemical may not be the most important for every effect. Standardization can also encourage overconcentration, which can shift a traditional food like herb into something closer to a drug. None of this is inherently harmful. It is simply complex. The wonder is that we are trying to translate a living chemistry set into industrial precision. Sometimes we succeed. Sometimes the plant reminds us that biology is richer than a single number on a label. Many plants make alkaloids to deter insects, and humans feel them. Alkaloids are one of nature's sharper defenses. They are nitrogen-rich molecules that can confuse, paralyze, or repel insects that try to eat a leaf or chew a seed. Despite being larger than insects, humans' nervous systems are still able to identify the same signals. That is why some alkaloids feel energizing, others feel sedating, and a few feel outright dangerous. We made caffeine a morning ritual because it is an alkaloid that the plants use as a pesticide. Nicotine evolved as an insect deterrent too, and it powerfully grips brain receptors that shape attention and reward. Then there are medicinal alkaloids, like atropine from nightshade relatives, which can dry secretions and change heart rhythm in medical settings. The fascination is that plants are not trying to help us, they are trying to survive. We are the ones who learn to borrow their chemical armor. Some teas feel dry because tannins have the ability to tighten tissues. That dry, puckering feeling from strong black tea is not imagination. It is tannins interacting with proteins in your saliva, which changes texture and makes the mouth feel less slippery. This astringency can also show up when tannin-rich plants touch skin, which is one reason certain traditional preparations were used for minor weeping irritations. Oak bark, witch hazel, and pomegranate rind have all been used in different places for their astringent character, often as rinses or compresses, rather than swallowed in large amounts. Tannins also serve the plant because they can make leaves less tasty and slow microbial growth on damaged tissue. There is a trade though. Tannins can bind to minerals and may reduce absorption of iron from a meal if taken heavily with food. A simple taste sensation becomes a window into chemistry, ecology, and careful timing. Salicylates in plants act as natural stress signals and human medicines. Plants use salicylates as a means of expressing distress. Salicylic acid aids in initiating defensive reactions when a leaf is attacked or infected, and it can even alert nearby tissues to get ready. Long before anyone understood why, humans found that plants containing these compounds could reduce fever and pain. Classic examples include meadowsweet and wintergreen, whose flavors and scents reveal the chemistry within. What is mesmerizing is the double life of these molecules. They serve as a plant's alarm system to help the organism withstand damage. In humans, related compounds can influence inflammation and pain pathways, which is why salicylate sensitivity can matter for some people with asthma or certain intolerances. This is ancient wisdom at its most poetic and practical. When used with awareness and respect, a plant's internal emergency broadcast can become a part of our own relief toolkit. Essential oils are potent in small quantities because they are concentrated chemistry. An essential oil is not a mild herbal tea in a smaller bottle, distilled or compressed. It is a concentrated mixture of volatile plant chemicals that separates and intensifies the aromatic fraction. That is why a single drop can fill a room, and why the same drop can irritate skin if it is applied undiluted. Compounds found in tea tree oil, oregano oil, and thyme oil can be hazardous to small children and pets because they can be harsh on tissue. However, these oils are also fascinating because they demonstrate the functions of plants. Many of their volatile chemicals evolve to repel insects, inhibit microbes, or signal other plants. They are used for fragrances, massage blends, and occasionally household cleaning, but they cannot take the place of medical care when an infection is severe. Essential oils are a reminder that plant-based does not mean gentle. It can mean potent, concentrated, and demanding of care. Some mushrooms produce immunologically active compounds, still under study. Mushrooms live in a world of constant microbial competition. So many species evolved complex molecules that interact with immune systems. Among the most well-known are beta-glucans, which interact with receptors on specific white blood cells to affect immune signaling. Researchers have studied edible mushrooms like shiitake and maitake, and also medicinal traditions involving reishi and turkey tail, looking at how extracts may support immune responses or recovery, alongside conventional care. The story is exciting, yet it is not simple. Different species, growing conditions, extraction techniques, and dosages can all have different effects. Safety can also differ, particularly for those with autoimmune diseases or those taking immunosuppressive medications, where increasing immune activity isn't always a good idea. A fascinating link between traditional medicine and contemporary immunology is provided by mushrooms. They pose an almost cinematic question. What other chemical conversations are happening in forests, right under our feet, that we have only begun to understand? Bitter compounds can trigger digestive reflexes like saliva and bile flow. One of the body's quickest ways to stimulate digestion is through bitterness. When bitter receptors in the mouth and upper gut detect certain plant compounds, they can kick off reflexes that increase saliva, prompt stomach secretions, and encourage bile release. This is why traditional bitters were often taken before meals, not as a random supplement in the middle of the day. Gentian root is famously bitter and has been used in classic bitter formulas. Dandelion and artichoke leaf are also used in different traditions to support digestive comfort, especially when a meal feels heavy. The effect is not guaranteed, and it will not fix serious disease, yet the mechanism is beautifully direct. Taste becomes physiology in real time. It is also a reminder that the body has built-in switches for preparation and anticipation. A small sip, taken intentionally, can tell the digestive system to get ready. This ancient wisdom often works by learning where those switches are. Flavonoids can act as antioxidants, but biology is more complex. Flavonoids are one reason colorful plants are so intriguing. They became well known as antioxidants because of their ability to scavenge free radicals in a test tube. Inside the body, the story becomes more layered. The liver and gut microbes frequently convert flavonoids into metabolites that may behave differently from the original substance. Even though their direct antioxidant activity in living tissue is minimal, some have an impact on blood vessel function, enzyme systems, or cell signaling. Researchers frequently revisit common examples, such as quercetin in onions, catechins in green tea, and anthocyanins in berries, because the signals appear in various types of studies. The intriguing thing is that these substances might function more as messengers than as shields. They can nudge the body's own protective pathways rather than doing all the work themselves. That idea changes how you think about plant medicine. It becomes less about a magic bullet and more about a gentle retuning of biology over time. Some herbs modulate inflammation pathways, not by blocking everything at once. Inflammation is not a single switch. It is a whole network that helps you heal, fight infection, and repair tissue. The problem comes when the network stays loud for too long, or when it fires in the wrong context. Certain herbs are intriguing because, instead of completely shutting down that network, they appear to modulate certain aspects of it. Acids found in Boswellia resin, sometimes referred to as frankincense in other contexts, have been investigated for their impact on inflammatory signaling-related enzymes. Although results vary depending on preparation, andrographis has been investigated for respiratory discomfort, in part through immune and inflammatory pathways. Even common culinary herbs like rosemary carry compounds that interact with inflammation-related enzymes, which might help explain why traditional diets and remedies overlap so often. What makes this approach compelling is its subtlety. There may be adverse effects from a broad blockade. A targeted nudge may offer a different balance, especially when paired with rest, sleep, and sensible medical care. It is not a promise. It is a strategy worth studying. Although claims about adaptogens are common, the evidence varies greatly by herb. Marketing adores the term adaptogen, which sounds like a superpower. According to the theory, some plants help the body manage stress by promoting equilibrium in various systems, such as energy metabolism, cortisol signaling, and nervous system tone. There is more evidence for some herbs than for others. Ashwagandha has gone through human trials that suggest benefits for perceived stress in some people, yet it can affect thyroid markers, and it may not suit everyone. Rhodiola is studied for fatigue and performance under strain, though studies vary in quality and extract type. Ginseng has a long history in modern research, but it can interact with blood sugar and certain medications. The true intrigue is that stress biology is complicated, so any assertion that applies to everyone should be questioned. Although the category is not a guarantee, adaptogens can be helpful. Each plant has its own chemistry, its own risks, and its own strength of evidence. Curiosity, combined with discrimination, makes this ancient wisdom safer and more fascinating. A single plant can carry hundreds of chemicals, each with a role. It's helpful to keep in mind that a plant is more than just one ingredient when considering it as medicine. A tiny chemical ecosystem is in your hands. There may be aromatic compounds that defend against insects, pigments that protect from sunlight, bitters that discourage grazing, and antioxidants that stabilize the plant's own tissues. Then there are sugars, fibers, minerals, and oils that change how everything is delivered. Herbal medicine can feel both rich and unpredictable because of this complexity. Depending on how they grew, when they were harvested, and how they were stored, two plants of the same species may have distinct chemical fingerprints. Modern laboratories use chromatography to map these fingerprints, almost like creating a barcode for each extract. The wonder is that we are still learning which parts matter most for which outcomes. A plant is not a single note, it is a chord, and the chord can change depending on how it is played. Traditional diets often acted as medicine by feeding the microbiome. Season, storage, and necessity shaped daily eating habits for the majority of history, and those habits subtly trained the gut ecosystem. Microbes that flourish on complex plant material were fed by high-fiber staples, wild greens, legumes, and a variety of grains. Short-chain fatty acids, which support the intestinal lining and affect immune signaling, were subsequently produced by those microbes. Changes in digestion, inflammation, and even mood can result from the microbial community narrowing along with a diet. Small amounts of bitter plants and aromatic spices were frequently used in traditional cuisines, adding chemical variety that microbes also react to. The fascinating part is that the medicine was not a special pill. It was breakfast and dinner, repeated for years. People were shaping their internal ecology without knowing the word microbiome. Now research is catching up to that ancient habit, asking how food patterns create resilience long before symptoms appear. Fermented foods can deliver microbes, but effects are strain-specific. Fermented foods feel like magic because they turn time into taste, yet their health effects depend on the exact microbes involved, not on the word fermented. Yogurt may contain strains that survive digestion better than others. Kimchi can include changing communities from batch to batch. Kombucha can carry acids and metabolites even when few live microbes remain by the time it is bottled. This implies that two products may have similar appearances but exhibit distinct bodily behaviors. The benefits may come from live organisms, from the compounds they produce during fermentation, or from both. This is why some people feel noticeably better with certain fermented foods, while others notice little change. It is also why researchers are careful. They test specific strains, specific doses, and specific outcomes. The wonder is that you are not only eating ingredients, you are eating the results of microbial craftsmanship, a little biochemical story written in jars and crocks, then carried into your gut. Fiber can lure cholesterol by trapping bile and reshaping gut bacteria. Fiber does not behave like a simple nutrient, because much of it is not digested by you. It moves through the gut and changes the environment as it goes. Certain soluble fibers can bind bile acids, and bile acids are made from cholesterol. When more bile is carried out of the body, the liver must pull more cholesterol from the bloodstream to replace it. At the same time, fiber feeds microbes that produce short-chain fatty acids, which can influence how the liver handles fats. This double effect helps explain why oats, beans, and psyllium show up often in heart health discussions. It is fascinating that something you cannot digest directly can still shape blood chemistry. Fiber is like an invisible lever. It works through movement, binding, and microbial metabolism, rather than through absorption. That also explains why it can change stool patterns quickly. The gut notices fiber right away, and the whole body can feel the downstream effects. Omega-3 fats can reduce inflammation signaling in many tissues. Omega-3 fats are special because they can become part of your cell membranes, and membranes help decide how cells send signals. When the balance of fats and membranes changes, the body can produce different families of signaling molecules, including some that are less inflammatory. Omega-3 seconds are also used to create compounds involved in the resolution of inflammation, which is the active process of calming an immune response once the job is done. This is why omega-3 seconds are studied in conditions involving joints, cardiovascular health, and mood. Sources vary. Fatty fish provide EPA and DHA directly, while flax and chia provide ALA, which the body converts less efficiently. The story is not that omega-3 seconds erase inflammation. The story is that they can shift the body toward a different biochemical tone over time. It is slow medicine built into the structure of cells. The awe comes from that intimacy. What you eat can become part of you, literally. Garlic in food may modestly support cardiovascular health in some people. Garlic has a dramatic smell because it becomes chemically active when crushed. That crushing triggers reactions that form sulfur compounds, and those compounds are part of why garlic is studied for heart-related effects. Some research suggests small improvements in blood pressure or cholesterol markers in certain groups, though results vary with dose, preparation, and study design. What makes garlic captivating is that it lives at the border between cuisine and medicine. It is not a rare herb. It is a daily ingredient that has traveled across cultures for centuries, not only for flavor, but also for its reputation in sickness seasons. Cooking changes its chemistry, and aged garlic extracts can behave differently again, which adds layers to the story. The practical takeaway is humble. Garlic in meals is not a replacement for medical care. Yet it is an example of how ordinary food can carry biologically active compounds, and how the kitchen can support the heart in small, steady ways. Bitter greens can stimulate digestion and also deliver minerals. Many people avoid bitter greens, yet bitterness is often a sign of phytochemicals that interact with digestion. When bitter compounds hit taste receptors, they can prompt saliva, stomach secretions, and the early stages of digestive readiness. That can make a meal feel easier to process, especially when appetite has been dull. Greens also deliver minerals like magnesium and potassium, plus folate and vitamin K, which support blood, nerves, and bones. Traditional diets often included bitter leaves as a routine, not as a cleanse, and that routine may have quietly supported gut regularity and nutrient balance. The fascination is that taste can guide function. The mouth detects bitter, then the digestive tract responds. Greens like dandelion, arugula, and trickery have long culinary histories that double as physiology lessons. Bitter does not mean bad. Sometimes it means your body is being invited to wake up and get to work. Spices can act as preservatives, shaping medicine and cuisine together. Before modern refrigeration, spoilage was a serious threat, and spices were not only about flavor. Many contain compounds that slow microbial growth or inhibit oxidation, which can help foods last longer in warm climates. Cloves, cinnamon, and oregano are often studied for antimicrobial activity, and their traditional use in meat and stews makes practical sense when you consider food safety history. The fascinating twist is that preserving food can also preserve health. Less spoilage means fewer infections and less toxin exposure, and that changes survival odds. Over time, culinary traditions that used certain spices may have been reinforced because they made meals safer, even if nobody described it that way. This is how medicine and cuisine blur. A spice rack can be a public health strategy disguised as comfort food. It also explains why spice trade routes became so valuable. People were not only trading taste, they were trading chemistry that helped food travel through time. Some herbal teas hydrate well, which alone can ease headaches. Headaches often feel mysterious, yet a surprising number are linked to simple dehydration or mild electrolyte shifts. A warm cup of herbal tea can help because it adds fluid in a form that is easy to sip slowly, and the ritual encourages you to pause rather than push through. When hydration improves, blood volume and circulation stabilize, and that can reduce the throbbing quality some people notice. Herbal teas also avoid caffeine, which matters for those who are sensitive or already overstimulated. The fascination is that relief can come from the most basic ingredient in medicine: water. People sometimes credit the herb blend for the improvement when the real hero is hydration plus rest. That does not make the tea pointless. It makes it clever. It delivers fluid with comfort, and comfort can change tension and breathing, which also influences headaches. Sometimes the simplest intervention is the one the body has been asking for quietly all day. Dehydration can mimic illness, making simple water surprisingly therapeutic. Mild dehydration can produce symptoms that imitate a full-body problem: fatigue, dizziness, headache, constipation, dry mouth, and even a racing heart can all show up when fluid levels dip. The body becomes more concentrated, blood volume drops, and the nervous system can interpret that as stress. In older adults, dehydration can even contribute to confusion, which can be mistaken for neurological decline. What makes this so striking is how easily it happens. Busy days, hot weather, long flights, or illness with fever can push fluid needs upward without clear thirst signals. Then the symptoms arrive, and people reach for supplements, stimulants, or complicated fixes. Sometimes the most powerful first step is simply restoring water and doing it steadily rather than all at once. This is ancient wisdom in its purest form. It is not exotic, it is foundational. When hydration returns, the body often recalibrates quickly, and the illusion of illness can dissolve. Sunlight helps the body make vitamin D, a hormone-like nutrient. When ultraviolet B light reaches skin, it triggers a chemical change that begins the production of vitamin D. The liver and kidneys then convert it into an active form that behaves more like a hormone than a typical vitamin, influencing calcium absorption, bone maintenance, and immune function. This is why low vitamin D status is linked with bone problems, and why deficiency risk rises in people with little sun exposure or darker skin in high latitudes. The fascinating part is that light becomes nutrition. The body uses photons as an ingredient. Yet sunlight is also a tool that requires wisdom. Too much increases skin cancer risk, so the goal is not endless exposure. It is balance, shaped by geography, season, and skin type. In this ancient wisdom traditions, sun was often treated as restorative, and modern science explains why. A few minutes can start a cascade that supports the whole body's long-term stability. Many remedies were discovered by watching animals self-medicate in the wild. In the wild, illness is not abstract. It is hunger that will not settle, a wound that will not close, a parasite that drains strength. Some animals respond by changing what they seek and what they avoid, almost like they are editing their own pharmacy. Researchers call this zoopharmacognosy, and it suggests that animals can learn to use plants soils, and tools. The most gripping part is that these choices can look deliberate. An animal may ignore a favorite food and travel farther for a bitter leaf that offers no calories. That behavior hints at a cost-benefit calculation, which is something we usually reserve for humans. It also offers a clue to how early people may have learned about medicinal plants. Curiosity is not only human. In nature, survival rewards the creature that notices patterns and remembers what helped last time. Elephants have been observed seeking certain plants during illness or pregnancy. Elephants are famous for memory, and that reputation makes their feeding choices especially intriguing when they seem to change under stress. Observers have reported elephants seeking out particular plants, bark, or mineral-rich soils when they appear unwell or when a female is pregnant. Some of these plants are not everyday favorites. They can be tougher, more bitter, or found in specific places, which suggests the animal is not simply grazing randomly. The fascination is that elephants live long lives in complex social groups, so knowledge can be carried through experience and possibly through observation of elders. A pregnant elephant that seeks a certain leaf may be responding to digestive changes, infection risk, or nutrient needs that rise during gestation. These are hard stories to prove with certainty, yet they are powerful clues. They remind us that medicine-seeking behavior may be older than human tradition. It may be woven into animal intelligence and long memory across generations. Chimpanzees swallow rough leaves, possibly to expel intestinal parasites. Some chimpanzees have been observed swallowing certain rough leaves whole, without chewing. Bat is a strange choice, because chewing would release more flavor and nutrients. Swallowing whole suggests a different purpose. One hypothesis is mechanical. The leaf texture may help dislodge parasites or irritants as it passes through the gut, carrying unwanted passengers out with it. Researchers have found evidence that this behavior is more common when parasite loads are high, and that it can coincide with signs of illness. The most captivating part is that the leaves are chosen, not random. Chimps often select specific species with the right texture, and they do it in a way that looks ritualized. These botanical practices without a human healer in sight. It also hints at how early humans may have discovered plank uses. Watching animals can teach you which plants are safe, which are active, and which are worth remembering when the stomach turns against you. Bees use propolis, a resin medicine for their hives. A beehive is warm, crowded, and full of sugar, which should make it a paradise for microbes. Yet many hives stay remarkably clean, and propolis is part of the reason. Bees collect sticky resins from tree buds and plant wounds, then mix them with wax and enzymes to create a sealing substance that lines, cracks, and coats surfaces. Propolis has antimicrobial properties, and it can reduce the microbial load inside the hive, which protects developing larvae and the whole colony. What makes this astonishing is that it looks like architecture, yet it also acts like pharmacy. Bees are not only building walls, they are building a healthier microbiological environment. Humans have used propolis in folk remedies for sore throats and minor wounds, and modern products now explore it for similar reasons. The deeper wonder is that a social insect can manage disease risk with part chemistry, turning a forest resin into community-wide protection. Birds sometimes line nests with aromatic plants that repel parasites. Some birds do not build nests with any available material. They choose specific aromatic plants, and the choices can change from year to year based on parasite pressure. The idea is that certain leaves and herbs release volatile compounds that deter mites, lice, and other nest parasites that can weaken chicks. A nest is a vulnerable place. Babies cannot flee, so the parents' material choices can act like preventive medicine, reducing bites and infections before they start. What makes this story fascinating is its subtlety. It is not dramatic self-healing after injury. It is protective planning. A bird is shaping the chemical environment around its young, using scent as a shield. Researchers have tested some of these plant choices and found lower parasite loads in nests lined with certain species, though results can vary with region and plant availability. It is a reminder that medicine can be built into home design. Nature does not always wait for illness. Sometimes it tries to prevent it. Even caterpillars change diets when infected, choosing different toxins. A caterpillar seems like a simple eating machine, yet infection can change what it chooses. Some studies suggest that when certain caterpillars are infected by parasites, they shift toward plants with higher levels of defensive chemicals. Even if those plants slow growth, that trade is striking. The caterpillar may accept a harder life now to increase its odds of surviving long enough to pupate. This resembles self-medication in miniature, where the goal is not comfort, but survival. The most awe-provoking part is that the behavior can appear targeted rather than random. The animal does not just eat less, it changes the chemical profile of its diet. That implies there is a sensing mechanism that links internal state with feeding choice. It also expands the idea of these botanical practices beyond mammals and birds. Even an insect larva may be making medical decisions, guided by evolution and biology. A leaf is not just food. It can be a pharmacological tool in a life or death struggle. Nature's pharmacy evolved for survival, not for human convenience. It is easy to think of nature as a helpful apothecary that is ready to treat us. The truth is sharper. Chemicals were developed by plants, fungi, and microbes to address their own issues, such as preventing predators, eliminating rivals, and withstanding drought. We are stealing weapons and defenses from a long-gone arms race when we employ those substances as treatments. Plant medicines can therefore be strong, erratic, and occasionally hazardous. A compound that stops a fungus from invading a leaf might also irritate human tissue. A toxin that deters insects might affect human nerves at a different dose. The fascination is that effectiveness and risk come from the same source. Evolution does not optimize for mild side effects, but rather for survival. This perspective makes these botanical practices more interesting, not less. It turns every remedy into a story of ecology and pressure. If a plant makes a molecule, there was a reason, and that reason was usually life and death. We enter that story when we turn the plant into medicine. Plants can increase protective chemicals when stressed, changing medicinal strength. The plant under stress does not stay chemically static. Changes in the amount of specific defensive compounds the plant produces can be caused by drought, intense sunlight, insect attack, and infection. Those compounds can include alkaloids, phenolics, and aromatic volatiles, and they may be the same molecules humans seek for medicinal effects. That means a herb harvested after a dry season might carry a different chemical profile than one grown with abundant water. It is not a manufactured product, but a living reaction. This is part of why traditional harvest rules often included weather, season, and even the time of day. People may have been tracking potency through experience, noticing when a plant seemed stronger or harsher. Modern testing can confirm variability in many botanicals, and it helps explain why the same remedy can feel different across batches. The wonder is that the plant is not only an ingredient, it's a biography. Stress writes chapters into its chemistry, and you can end up drinking that story in a cup. Some traditional healers timed harvests to seasons, tracking potency changes. Harvest timing was considered a skill rather than a superstition in many traditions. Resins may be collected when heat causes them to flow. Roots may be collected when a plant draws energy downward, and leaves may be collected prior to flowering, which alters chemistry. These choices can matter because plant compounds often shift with growth stage and environmental conditions. A leaf made for spring growth may not match a leaf hardened by late summer sun. These variations were taken into consideration by traditional healers, who created calendars based on them. The fascination is that this looks like early pharmacology. Without lab instruments, people still noticed that preparation made from one harvest worked differently than the next. They responded by narrowing the timing, teaching apprentices to watch the plant's life cycle like a clock. Today, herbal quality control sometimes mirrors this logic through standardized harvest windows and chemical testing. It is a beautiful meeting point. Seasonal observation becomes measurable chemistry. An outdated guideline turns into a testable hypothesis. The same herb can calm or stimulate depending on preparation and dose. This is one of the most mind-bending truths in these botanical practices, because it breaks the idea that a herb has a single personality. Preparation can change which compounds are extracted, and dose can change which receptors are engaged. A light infusion might emphasize aromatic compounds that feel soothing, while a stronger decoction might pull out bitter or stimulating constituents. Some herbs also contain multiple active families, so the balance can shift with temperature, steep time, and the part of the plant used. Even the person matters, because metabolism and sensitivity change the experience. This is why folk traditions often specify not just the herb, but the method, the timing, and the amount. It is also why modern supplements can surprise people. A mild experience can become intense with concentration. The awe here is that the herb is not a single switch. It is a dimmer, and the body responds differently across the range. Knowing that transforms curiosity into expertise. Because plant mixtures are difficult to conceal, clinical testing of herbs is complicated. A pill trial sounds simple until the treatment has a smell, a taste, and a personality. Because many herbs have bitter, aromatic, or warming properties, participants may guess what they are taking, which could alter the results. Sometimes even the researchers can tell, endangering the comparison's fairness. Then there is the mixture problem. 2 batches of the same herb can vary, and a formula may contain many active compounds that shift with harvest and processing. You must inquire as to what was tested and whether a different product would exhibit the same behavior when a trial reports a result. This does not mean herbs cannot be studied. It means the study design must be clever, with careful sourcing, matching placebos, and clear chemical profiles. The intriguing aspect is that biology is not the only scientific challenge. It is also craftsmanship, because the intervention is a living mixture. Quality control is a major challenge, because contamination can happen. A dried plant can carry stories you never meant to buy. Mold can grow if the herb was not dried and stored properly, and some molds produce toxins that the body does not forgive easily. Pesticide residues can cling to leaves and roots, especially when cultivation practices are poorly regulated. Sometimes the contaminant is accidental, like dust or microbes introduced during processing. It can occasionally be the outcome of a supply chain that is too quick and inexpensive to exercise caution. The most unsettling part is that contamination does not always announce itself with a strange smell or color. A capsule can look perfect and still be problematic. This is why reputable producers test for microbes, toxins, and residues, and why third-party testing matters. These botanical practices can be wonderful, yet it lives in the real world of farming and shipping. The romance of plants meets the hard truth of quality systems, and safety depends on those systems working. Misidentified plants can cause poisonings, especially in foraged remedies. Plant identification is a critical skill, but foraging feels like a return to ancient wisdom. Subtle differences, such as the shape of a leaf edge or the scent released when a stem breaks, can distinguish many harmless herbs from their dangerous counterparts. When dried material is chopped and rendered unrecognizable, mistakes can occur both in the field and in supply chains. Once everything is powdered, you can no longer rely on visual cues, which increases the risk. Some poisonings come from confusing edible plants with toxic relatives, and the body can react with severe liver damage, heart rhythm changes, or neurological symptoms. What makes this so gripping is the contrast between intention and outcome. A person reaches for a natural remedy, expecting gentleness, and instead meets potent plant defenses. The lesson is not fear. Respect is what it is. Foraging medicine should demand training, reliable references, and in many cases, professional guidance. Certain conventional products contain hazardous amounts of heavy metals. Some remedies carry a danger that feels invisible because it is not a plant problem. It is a pollution and manufacturing problem. Herbs can absorb heavy metals from soil and water, especially when grown near industrial contamination. Additionally, during processing, metals may get into probits through equipment, adulterants, or dyes. Cadmium, lead, arsenic, and mercury are not theoretical issues. They can accumulate in the body over time and affect the nervous system, kidneys, and developing brains. The slow pace is what makes this scary. A person may feel fine while exposure builds quietly, and symptoms can be vague when they finally appear. For this reason, testing and sourcing are crucial, and the impact of regulatory oversight varies by nation and product type. These botanical practices should not mean unmeasured risk. Despite the plant's age, the supply chain is contemporary, and contemporary issues may accompany it. Herb-drug interactions are underreported because many people never mention supplements. Surprisingly, many people treat supplements more like personal habits than like drugs that should be disclosed. They may forget, feel embarrassed, or assume a doctor will dismiss them. That silence can be dangerous because many herbs share the same metabolic pathways as prescription drugs. Some can alter blood pressure, some can speed up the clearance of medications, and some can increase sedation. When an interaction happens, it can look like the prescription stopped working or suddenly became too strong. The true cause is then concealed, while the doctor modifies the dosage. The fascinating part is how social this problem is. It involves communication as well as chemistry. These botanical practices become safer when it enters the medical conversation openly. A patient is not being difficult by mentioning supplements. They are giving the care team the full map. Even simple choices, like a sleep tea or an energy capsule, can matter in the context of anesthesia, anticoagulants, antidepressants, or seizure medicines. Children and pregnancy require extra caution because dosing rules change. Because children's organs are still developing and they process chemicals differently than adults, a dose that seems harmless to an adult may be too much for them. Another layer is added during pregnancy. The placenta establishes a new route for substances to enter a developing fetus. Blood volume varies, and liver enzyme activity may change. This implies that the pregnant person's body is not the only thing at risk. It is also about sensitive developmental windows, where small exposures can have outsized effects. Some herbs also influence uterine tone or hormone signaling, which can be risky even when the herb seems harmless in other contexts. What makes this topic so important is how often people reach the natural products during pregnancy because they want to avoid pharmaceuticals. The intention is protective, yet the result can be uncertain without good data. Caution, expert advice, and a preference for well-researched interventions are the safest course of action, particularly when someone is tempted to use concentrated extracts due to nausea, anxiety, or sleep issues. Liver and kidney disease can magnify risks from concentrated extracts. The liver and kidneys are the body's main filtering systems, and they do not just remove waste. They change substances, deactivate some, activate others, and determine which remain in circulation. When these organs are impaired, even normal doses can behave like overdoses. A supplement that is easily eliminated in a healthy body may build up, and accumulation can cause unexpected side effects. Concentrated extracts raise the stakes because they deliver higher chemical loads than traditional teas or foods. Some compounds can also be directly stressful to the liver, which creates a double risk for someone already vulnerable. The fascinating part is that symptoms can be confusing. Fatigue, itching, nausea, and brain fog can come from disease itself, from a supplement, or from their interaction. These botanical practices can still have a place, but it must be chosen with careful medical context. Everything else, including what appears to be safe, changes when filtration systems do. A remedy can help symptoms while hiding a serious diagnosis. Relief can be deceptive because symptoms are signals, not the whole story. While an ulcer is still developing underneath, a soothing herb may lessen cramping in the stomach. A sleep supplement might mask insomnia that is driven by thyroid overactivity, sleep apnea, or depression. Pain relief can be especially tricky because pain reduction may encourage someone to keep using an injured joint, which can worsen damage. This is not an argument against symptom relief. Comfort matters. It is an argument for curiosity about why the symptom appeared, especially when it is new, severe, persistent, or accompanied by warning signs like weight loss, fever, blood in stool, fainting, or night sweats. These botanical practices sometimes works quickly, which makes it feel decisive. When it postpones appropriate assessment, that speed can turn into a trap. The most empowering approach is to treat symptom relief and diagnosis as partners. Use what helps, but keep listening for the deeper message your body is trying to deliver. Evidence-based herbalism combines custom with contemporary safety and testing. This method views traditional wisdom as a collection of hints rather than a sacred promise. It asks which herbs have safety signals, which have human data supporting them, and which claims are primarily marketing. It also cares about the boring details that keep people safe, like dose ranges, contraindications, product quality, and known interactions. A tradition may say, a plant helps sleep, and evidence-based practice will ask, what kind of sleep, in which people, at what dose, and with what risks. It may also notice when a remedy works better as a food or tea than as a high-potency extract. What makes this fascinating is that it is not anti-tradition. It is pro-clarity. It respects cultural history while demanding the same standards we want for any health choice. As a result, a plant can be valued for its true qualities without being transformed into a miracle remedy, a sort of bridge building. These botanical practices is most reliable when it strikes that balance. Start low, go slow, and monitor effects, according to many guidelines. This advice sounds simple, yet it is one of the most protective habits in these botanical practices. Starting low reduces the chance of sudden side effects, especially with herbs that affect sleep, blood pressure, digestion, or mood. Going slowly allows your body to show you how it reacts and allows you to see patterns instead of chasing intensity right away. Tracking effects turns the process into an experiment you can actually learn from. You can write down what you took, when you took it, what you ate, how you slept, and what changed. That record can reveal surprises, like a remedy that helps on restful days but backfires on stressful ones. It also creates useful information for a clinician if you need guidance. This makes self-care a skill, which is fascinating. You watch rather than hope. Instead of guessing, you learn. With safety at its core, these botanical practices starts to resemble careful personal science rather than folklore. Some hospitals now integrate acupuncture or mindfulness for pain management. Pain management is becoming more than just a prescription pad in an increasing number of medical settings. In addition to physical therapy, integrative programs may provide acupuncture or teach patients mindfulness techniques to help them manage pain flare-ups without panicking. This shows up after surgery, during cancer care, and in chronic pain clinics, where long-term opioid use can create its own problems. The goal is not to replace emergency medicine. Adding options that can lessen suffering, enhance function, and occasionally reduce medication dosages is the aim. What makes this shift so fascinating is how practical it is. Hospitals track outcomes, patient satisfaction, and return visits. They also train staff to communicate these options clearly, so patients do not feel judged for wanting relief. These botanical practices becomes part of modern care when it is measured, supervised, and used as one tool among many. Scientists are using machine learning to search plants for new antibiotics. Finding a new antibiotic used to feel like hunting for a needle in a rainforest. Researchers can now predict which plant compounds might be worth testing first. By using algorithms that have been trained on known drug structures and microbial targets, instead of screening everything blindly, machine learning can prioritize candidates that look promising, unusual, or chemically novel. That matters because many microbes are evolving resistance faster than new antibiotics reach the clinic. Here, plants are particularly fascinating because they have spent millions of years protecting themselves from fungi and bacteria. They may carry chemical patterns that laboratories have not explored yet. The thrilling part is the speed. A computer can narrow thousands of possibilities into a short list that a lab can actually handle. After that, actual testing starts, including toxicity assessments and investigations into the compound's physiological effects. These botanical practices becomes a frontier again, guided by code and curiosity. Researchers explore rainforest chemistry, where millions of species compete. A rainforest is modernly green. It is a chemical battlefield. Insects, fungi, microbes, and plants are all crammed together and attempting to live without being eaten or infected. That pressure drives extraordinary chemical invention. A vine may produce bitter toxins to stop caterpillars. A fungus may release antimicrobials to protect its territory. A tree may brew resins that seal wounds and discourage invaders. For medicine hunters, this dense competition hints at dense novelty, because species that fight constantly must keep evolving new tricks. The wonder is that many of these molecules were never designed for humans, yet they can interact with human biology in powerful ways. Exploring rainforest chemistry is also fragile work. A compound might come from a rare organism or from a symbiosis that is hard to reproduce. Each discovery can feel like uncovering a secret language written in leaves, spores, and survival. Drug-resistant microbes renew interest in old remedies like honey. When antibiotics stop working, medicine has to get creative, and that has revived interest in approaches that do not rely on a single drug mechanism. In wound care, certain medical-grade honeys have drawn attention because they can support healing environments where bacteria struggle to take hold. The context is what's exciting about this. Chronic wounds often involve biofilms, which are slimy microbial communities that resist many treatments. Clinicians have explored honey-based dressings as part of broader wound protocols, alongside cleaning, debridement, and careful monitoring. This is not a folk shortcut. Instead of relying solely on one antibiotic, it is a contemporary attempt to employ several pressures simultaneously. The deeper fascination is that resistance changes the whole map of medicine. Once they are standardized, sterilized, and investigated in actual clinical settings, tools that previously seemed antiquated can become viable alternatives. Bioprospecting raises ethics because indigenous knowledge deserves protection and credit. When a researcher learns about a plant from an indigenous community, that knowledge is not a free sample. It is cultural property that is frequently connected to identity, stewardship, and overcoming adversity. Bioprospecting can become exploitation when companies extract a remedy, patent a compound, and profit, while the source community receives nothing or is not even acknowledged. Ethical frameworks aim to change that by emphasizing prior informed consent, benefit sharing, and respect for sovereignty. What makes this topic so gripping is that it sits at the crossroads of science and justice. A support can be discovered, yet the story of how it was found can still be wrong. Fair collaboration can include shared authorship, community-led research goals, and long-term support for local health and conservation. These botanical practices is not only chemistry, it is also history, and power is a part of history. Doing it right means treating knowledge holders as partners, not as resources. Conservation may be therapeutic. Future treatments may be lost if a species disappears. Every extinction is a library burning, and the books are written in molecules. Unique chemicals that evolved under particular pressures may be found in a single species, and these chemicals may interact with human biology in ways that we have never tested. When habitats disappear, that chemical diversity disappears too, often before anyone even names the species. The medical loss is hard to see because it is a loss of possibilities. You cannot point to the exact drug that was missed. All you know is that the search area has gotten smaller. What makes this awe-inspiring and heartbreaking is scale. Earth holds countless organisms, many in ecosystems that are changing fast. Conservation is often framed as beauty or morality, and it is both, but it is also pragmatic. A pipeline of future concepts for antibiotics, antivirals, anti-inflammatory drugs, and cancer treatments is safeguarded by protecting biodiversity. In that sense, a protected forest can be a preventive health strategy for generations we will never meet. Citizen science herb gardens help preserve rare varieties and local knowledge. Not all conservation takes place in far-off jungles. Sometimes it happens in a neighborhood garden with labeled beds and patient volunteers. Herb gardens, run by citizens, can document growth habits, preserve heirloom varieties, and prevent traditional uses from disappearing. They also create living classrooms where people can learn to identify plants safely, understand harvest timing, and appreciate how soil and climate change what a plant becomes. Some gardens partner with schools, clinics, or universities to share seeds and data and to teach the difference between culinary herbs and high-potency extracts. This is fascinating because it makes medical history tangible. A story about a plant is easier to remember when you have smelled it, watched it flower, and seen bees visit it. Local gardens also reduce pressure on wild harvesting, which protects ecosystems. In a world of mass production, a community garden can be a quiet act of resilience. Modern testing can reveal which folk remedies truly outperform placebo. Certain conventional treatments endure because they are effective, and contemporary testing can assist in distinguishing trustworthy outcomes from optimistic tales. When feasible, researchers employ blinded evaluations, randomized trials, and cautious placebos before searching for consistent gains among various groups. The outcome can occasionally be humble. A beloved remedy performs no better than expectation alone. Other times, the result is thrilling. A remedy exhibits a genuine signal, which can direct safer dosage, more precise indications, and cautions about who should avoid it. Modern testing also helps uncover trade-offs, like a treatment that helps one symptom but worsens another. This method can respect tradition without romanticizing it, which is what makes it so intriguing. It treats folk knowledge as a map of hypotheses, then checks the map against reality. A remedy is more than just a story. When it passes that test, it becomes a tool that can be trusted, taught, and improved, the safest. These botanical practices often begins with lifestyle, not supplements. Before adding capsules, many of the most powerful changes come from the basics that shape every system at once. Frequent sleep helps lower pain sensitivity and stabilize mood. Movement can improve circulation, joint function, and stress tolerance. Food choices can support stable energy rather than spikes and crashes. Hydration can reduce headaches and fatigue that masquerade as bigger problems. Time outdoors can improve light exposure and daily rhythm. Social connection can buffer stressing ways that no herb can imitate. The fact that lifestyle is not a single intervention is what makes this so compelling. It is a background environment that either keeps the body under stress or aids in its repair. Supplements can have a place, but they can also become distractions from the foundations. The most empowering these botanical practices plan often looks almost boring at first. Then it starts working, and the boring becomes miraculous. Routine makes a body more receptive to all other types of care. These botanical practices is a conversation between culture, chemistry, and careful evidence. Every remedy carries at least 3 stories at once. Culture tells you how people discovered it, how they prepared it, and why it mattered in daily life. Chemistry tells you what molecules are present, how they behave in the body, and what risks travel with them. Evidence tells you what holds up when you test it, measure it, and compare it fairly. When these stories align, these botanical practices becomes incredibly powerful. Conflicts between them can be perplexing and even dangerous. What makes this field so endlessly interesting is that it keeps evolving. Old practices can be explained by new lab tools. Exaggerated claims can be corrected by new clinical research. New ethical standards can reshape who benefits from discovery. A thoughtful approach does not dismiss tradition, and it does not worship it either. It listens, tests, and refines. In this way, these botanical practices transforms into a dynamic conversation about human healing rather than a static set of solutions. As we near the conclusion of our exploration of these botanical practices, you may realize how vast the terrain truly is. We wandered from early human survival and plant remedies that shaped modern drugs to the quiet power of food, sleep, touch, and breath. We met chemistry hiding in familiar places, in honey that helps a wound stay clean, in ginger settling a rolling stomach, and in the way your own liver treats a herb with the same seriousness as a prescription. We also discussed the need for caution, the importance of context and dosage, and the fact that nature's pharmacy was never intended to be convenient. To the wild world was observing from beyond the human narrative, birds selecting fragrant leaves for their nests, bees using resin to seal their hives, and animals making decisions that resemble innate wisdom. All of it points to the same idea. Healing is a conversation between bodies and environments, between tradition and testing, between what we feel and what we can measure. Now, you do not need to hold any of it tightly. In gentle lamplight, let the knowledge settle like dust particles. Allow your forehead to smooth. Unclench your jaw. Like a leaf on slow water, you can allow your thoughts to drift back to a surprising detail or the name of a plant. If you enjoyed this winding path, you can support the channel by liking, subscribing, or leaving a comment. It provides a peaceful landing place for more inquisitive minds. And if you are still awake, there will be another video waiting on your screen, ready to carry you even deeper into sleep. For now, rest can take over. Inhale and exhale. As we emerge from this journey, we carry with us a profound truth. The boundary between the ancient forest and the modern clinic is not a wall, but a bridge. We've learned tonight that healing is a symphony, one that requires the precision of science, the wisdom of our ancestors, and above all, a deep respect for our own biological limits. Nature offers us the tools, but education is what allows us to use them safely. By understanding the chemistry in our kitchens and the rhythms of our rest, we transform from passive observers into conscious guardians of our own well-being. If tonight's exploration has brought you clarity or a moment of peace, I invite you to join our circle. By subscribing to Sleep Science Top 1, you aren't just following a channel, you are committing to a deeper understanding of the silent forces that repair and restore you every night. Share one thing you learned tonight in the comments. It helps our community grow and learn together. For now, let this knowledge settle into your subconscious as you drift into the most natural medicine of all. Sleep deeply, stay curious, and we will see you in the next journey.